for sitting down and chatting today with us. And I know we're going to be talking a lot about some of the conference and some grants that Show Hope does, and about adoption in general. So do you want to start maybe a little bit about what the nonprofit Show Hope is, just for those that may not be as familiar with it?
Sure. So a little bit of our background. Stephen and I, we adopted three beautiful children through adoption: Joey, Stevie, Joy, and Maria. We have three bio children: Emily, Caleb, and Will Franklin. And so this all started in 1997. Emily, our oldest, and I took a trip to Haiti, and she was 11 years old at the time. And both of us, we went with Compassion International, and both of us really came home kind of wrecked, just seeing the need there in Haiti, and in particular, our 11-year-old Emily just really just kind of God lit a fire in her little heart, and she just started this pursuit of us potentially adopting. She was like, "Mom and Dad, we have room at our table." She left us notes. It was like, you guys might be living in disobedience to God if you don't consider adoption, and we used to tell her, that's an amazing, wonderful plan for you when you grow up someday. But at the same time, I think God was really stirring something in mine and Stephen's heart, and we really wanted to take her little mustard seed of faith and just take it serious. So we sat down the three children that we had at the time and said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to consider this. We're going to begin to pray and ask God what it would look like for our family to step into adoption." And that's going to be a journey. It might throw some roadblocks up, might get a detour sign, but we're going to see where God will take us. And for us personally, I've always said not everybody's called to adopt, but everybody's called to do something, right? But for us, that was really God just kind of wrecking our lives for the vulnerable, and this beautiful adoption journey began. And we not only adopted our first Shohana into our family, but then would go on to adopt Stevie, Joy, and Maria as well. And then from there, Show Hope was really founded out of a desire to go, okay, God, I just really, with our first adoption, really just had kind of a new kind of spiritual rebirth to really understand what God had done for me through adopting me, as his princess, as his daughter, and so that really began stirring in mine and Stephen's heart, like, what would it look like for us to be able to step into this gap where there's families who are Christian families that are longing to adopt but don't have the finances, and how can we use and utilize Stephen's platform to help as many families as possible who might want to step into what we were called to. And so that's really the early days of Show Hope and how it all started.
That's fantastic. And I know that part of it, with some of the material I had to read here, that I know providing grants is one of the items that Show Hope, one of the many items that Show Hope's help with, but one of the newest here items is the medical care grants in addition to the adoption grants. So do you want to speak a little bit about those and why you feel that those are so needed and necessary?
Yeah, I think, God is just so, I think, just so gentle with us, like, right, he calls us into what we kind of see in front of us, and Stephen and I just really we adopted Shoei in 1999, 2000, and during that time period, and then from there the work of Show Hope started, and it really did, like you said, it started out of this desire to want to help Christian families offset the financial barriers to adoption. And the way we did that in the early days was we started giving adoption aid grants. We really wanted to try to help offset the cost of adoption. Adoption can be expensive. From there, Show Hope has stepped into kind of 4 unique areas of work, one of which is the medical care grants. And Stephen and I have always been the type of people who wanted to really journey deep with folks and not so much wide. And so as we just wanted to stay really kind of attuned to the spirit of what he was asking us to do. And it's like, how do we really go deep with these families? And once adoption, I've always said adoption doesn't end the day that the adoption is complete. That's really kind of the beginning of the journey. And so Show Hope stepping into the area of pre and post adoption services, and then like medical care grants, it's like, how can we kind of do what wrap around care and really help families become as successful as possible, because there's just a lot of variables. There's a lot of hard, it's like I always call adoption a gloriously hard journey. Stephen and I feel like in our own journey we could have missed it, right? It's been beautiful and hard, and God just kind of gloriously wrecked us. Well, one of the areas that families really struggle in is this medical care piece. A lot of children who come into families through the miracle of adoption have just straight up medical needs. Some things are outside the realm of what insurance will cover. There's devices, there's outside medical care that that just insurance, common insurance doesn't cover. And so it's like, what would it look like to really begin to again partner with families who have adopted, who have these huge medical bills? And so we just in the last year stepped into starting, caring that way. We do grants really well, so it's like, how can we kind of expand our grant services and begin to offer financial services to families who have medical fees as it pertains to the children they've adopted. So that's kind of where that came from.
That's fantastic. I'm curious how, with the past 2 years have gone in the world, how that has affected Show Hope and the ability of the work and kind of the reach of the work that you've been able to do.
Sure. So obviously, the pandemic, it's just kind of like you're, clipping along doing life, and then all of a sudden 2020 happens, and it's like, wow, didn't see that coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for 10 plus years, over 10 years, we had a work in China where we were caring for medically fragile children there, and for medical centers. Our flagship medical center was called Maria's Big House of Hope. It is still there in China today. It's still, we funded that building, and so it is still there caring for children. We unfortunately, in late 2019, going into 20, just began an exit of that work because of the uniqueness and difficulty it is to just work in the country of China. It's really it's a nuanced place that's really difficult to do work there, and it was becoming increasingly difficult. And so we had begun an exit strategy of that work, and literally a week after we made that announcement at Show Hope, this word pandemic and coronavirus and everything started circulating around. So it was really God's protection that we had already begun a strategic exit. So it made that work almost impossible. We had to bring home all of our staff anyways. It would have stopped the work. And so God was gracious in that we were able to do the exit in a way in which the least amount of children were affected, the least amount of staff was affected. And so we had to transition out of that work. It wasn't so much the pandemic as much as it was becoming increasingly more difficult to work in the country of China. However, the jury is still out on the pandemic, right? Globally, obviously, the pandemic has created probably, time will tell, right? We don't have the numbers yet of how many children have been affected by losing one or both parents to the pandemic. What is that going to look like even in our own country with families who have lost jobs, lost their livelihood? How does that affect decisions on whether there's going to be an adoption placement? All those kind of things. We can kind of expect that there'll be a rise in international adoptions and potentially even domestic adoptions, just because of the hardship it's placed on families, and then just the unfortunate deaths that occurred with the pandemic. So we are watching that closely and poised to help how we can. And I think it's probably another year or so off on where we'll be able to step in and help. And so yes, it has certainly affected. It has affected travel for families who are already in the adoption process, families that we've already, awarded grants. We don't disperse the funds until they actually have a travel plan in place. That has slowed down immensely because there's certain countries you still can't travel to. But we're really starting to see movement now. A lot of those countries are allowing some travel. Some are still closed, but we have certainly seen the effects of it. But I've always been a believer in where there's a good work going on, God finds a way, right? It might have slowed down, but I think it's also going to increase in time, and hopefully Show Hope will be poised to be able to help offer some resources to families who are affected by the pandemic.
Absolutely. And then my next question is looking forward then into next year and beyond. What are you most, expecting for? What are you most looking forward to in terms of where you're going to be able to have that reach?
Yeah, we're hoping to stay pretty nimble on, and hopefully encourage. Obviously, it's a hard thing to say. Hopefully we are encouraged and stand poised to help family who are going to step into that gap and go. If there were children orphaned by the pandemic, we now want to step. As believers, we want to step into the realm of adopting. And so we're going to be hopefully poised to give more. Financial aid grants for adoption aid. Obviously, if those families are bringing home children with medical needs, obviously we're poised to be able to give the medical care grants now. And then just doing the wraparound support with the pre and post adoption services. Adoption doesn't end the day that the adoption is complete, it's just beginning. And, these kiddos come, into homes with a lot of invisible baggage. And how can we wrap that support around by offering, like the conference that we do and the pre and post adoption services. And we give a lot of scholarships to professionals to go become TBRI trained, which is trust-based relational intervention training that helps families parent differently and put tools in their toolbox to help these kiddos that come into the home with some early trauma and attachment wounds. And so we're poised to be able to step into that more and offer those resources. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to touch as many families as possible.
That's great. And the one thing that you did mention was the conference, which I know is going to be set to kick off in early April. How far along are you with planning that, and what all do you have left for that?
Yeah, that's great. Our daughter, Emily, the one who really encouraged us to adopt all those years ago, she's now 35 years old and is the executive director at Show Hope. Chapman Richards, Emily Richards, and she really kind of, wraps herself into that conference and kind of begins to get all the speakers and stuff lined up. We are shooting the videos now. It's going to be an on-demand conference, and it's a super robust conference full of all kinds of just professional speakers who just help parents, just parent in a way that brings life to these kiddos. And so it's about all shaped up. We're doing all the filming now, and so we're really excited. I think there's a ton of people signed up, and if you're a single, just somebody who just wants to watch it, you can sign up. Churches are signing up, small groups are signing up, so we're really excited about it.
That's fantastic. Again, I just wanted to thank you again for speaking today, and happy to help spread the word with all the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, yeah. And you can find out obviously more at showhope.org. And obviously, I think you've probably been on the site. It tells you all about the conference, all about what we're doing, how we can serve families. Howtoadopt.org is another site that we host, and it is full of resources for families who, Stephen and I get all the time. Where do we start? We have so many questions about adoptions or how to get involved, or we want to adopt, but we don't even know where to start. That is an amazing resource for people who have questions. And then yeah, if you're somebody who is hoping to adopt, we have funds that can help that, and we also have funds that will help you continue in your journey as far as like the medical care grant. So yeah, we're just looking to help families.
That's fantastic, and I'll make sure we get both of those sites linked, just so people can access those easily.
Yeah, great.
All right. Well, thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.